74,000 years ago, the sky went dark for a decade. A mountain on the island of Sumatra had just detonated. It was the loudest sound our species had ever heard. It hurled nearly 3,000 cubic kilometers of rock and ash into the sky. It was a VI8, the highest rating on the scale. To put that in perspective, Krakatoa was a firecracker by comparison. Long before cities, before farms, before writing, our world was different. Small bands of humans lived across Africa, the Levant, and into Asia. They were Homo sapiens, but with no villages, no metal, no agriculture. Their world was stone tools, fire, and each other. Every single day was a calculation for survival. Their toolkit was small, but it had taken hundreds of thousands of years to perfect. And in what is now Indonesia, the ground began to shake. Lake Toba, a supervolcano, was waking up. For days, the mountain roared. It hurled nearly 3,000 cubic kilometers of rock and ash into the sky. The ash column punched through the stratosphere and began to spread. Within weeks, ash fell across India, China, and the Indian Ocean. Some of it drifted as far as Africa. Sunlight dimmed to a permanent twilight. Global temperatures dropped by 3 to 5 degrees Celsius. For years, perhaps a decade, summer never came. Rain became laced with sulfuric acid. Forests withered. Grasslands turned to dust. Photosynthesis nearly stopped across vast regions of the planet. The food chain began to collapse from the bottom up. Hunters came home empty-handed more often than not. For decades, scientists believed this almost killed us. In 1998, anthropologist Stanley Ambrose proposed the Toba catastrophe theory. He argued the eruption triggered a population bottleneck, a moment when our species was reduced to perhaps 10,000 people. Geneticists found supporting evidence in our DNA. Mitochondrial DNA pointed to a sharp population crash around 70,000 years ago. The timing matched Toba almost perfectly. The story was terrifying. We nearly weren't. But new evidence tells a very different story. In southern India, at a site called Jwalapuram, archaeologists made a discovery. They found stone tools, not just below the Toba ash layer, but above it. The tools above and below were nearly identical in style. They did not vanish. They did not abandon their technology. They kept going. Jwalapuram sits more than 3,000 kilometers from Toba. Yet people lived there through the eruption. They had tools. They had fire. They had each other. In East Africa, scientists drilled into the sediment of Lake Malawi. They found tiny shards of volcanic glass, microtephra, from Toba. Right above and below the ash layer, the pollen record barely changed. The forests were still forests. The grasslands were still grasslands. The ecosystems did not collapse. In South Africa, the famous site of Pinnacle Point tells a similar story. Humans were living at Pinnacle Point long before Toba. At Sibudu Cave in KwaZulu-Natal, the ash layer is preserved in the ground. Stone tools, hearths, and animal bones lie above the ash. Stone tools, hearths, and animal bones lie below it. People did not leave. They stayed. They kept making tools. They kept cooking. They kept living. The traditional catastrophe story began to unravel. Bottleneck in our genes? It may not have been Toba at all. Newer genetic studies suggest the population low point came earlier, closer to 50 or 60,000 years ago. It was less severe than once thought, or it was caused by gradual climate shifts, not a single catastrophic eruption. So why did our ancestors survive? Fire. Mastery of fire gave them warmth in a cooling world. It gave them cooked food when raw food became scarce. It gave them light in the endless dark. Stone tool technology had been refined for hundreds of thousands of years. Our ancestors could shape a hand axe in minutes, could butcher almost any animal they encountered. They could process tough plants, hide, and bone. Cooperation. No human survived alone. Bands shared food, knowledge, and care. When one hunter failed, another succeeded. Bands stuck together. The knowledge of generations lived in every band. Which plants were safe? Where to find water? Which caves stayed warm? Migration to refugia. Some groups moved to coastal areas where seafood remained available. Some moved into deep caves for warmth and shelter. Some moved to river valleys where water still flowed. The eruption was global, but its worst effects were regional. Africa, the cradle of our species, may have been buffered. The equatorial sun, the deep lakes, the cave systems, they helped. Smaller group sizes also helped. Tiny bands needed less food and could move quickly. They could outlast hard times that would have destroyed larger populations. Other hominins were also alive at this time. Neanderthals lived across Europe and the Middle Denisovans Denisovans lived in Asia. Some groups of Homo sapiens even interbred with them. Neanderthals disappeared within tens of thousands of years after Toba. What do we have that they did not? The answer may be in the size of our social networks. Modern humans may have traded with bands they had never met. We shared information across vast distances. We adapted our tools to new environments faster. We may have been the first true generalists. The eruption was not the end of our story. It was a turning point. The generations that lived through Toba carried the knowledge forward. They knew which plants were safe to eat. They knew how to find water in a drought. They knew which caves stayed warm. They knew which animals could be hunted in winter. That knowledge saved their children and their children's children. Within a few thousand years, our species had spread further than ever before. We crossed into Australia by 65,000 years ago. We pushed into the cold steppes of northern Europe. We settled the high plateaus of the Tibetan Plateau. The eruption that should have ended us only made us stronger. The ash settled. The sun returned. The forests regrew. The animals came back. And our ancestors walked out of the long dark. They had survived the worst the planet could throw at them. They had done it together. Today, every human on Earth is a descendant of those survivors. The fire, the tools, the language, the cooperation, it all began with them. So the next time you stand in front of a volcano or watch the sun set through a dusty sky, remember, 74,000 years ago, your kind faced the worst day in human history. They made it through, stubborn, adaptable, together, because they were us.